Imagine this. Deep in the heart of Brazil, a strange, beautiful light suddenly appears one night. It's mesmerizing. People are just captivated by it. But this incredible glow, it wasn't a miracle. It was a curse, a silent poison that would bring an entire city to its knees and trigger one of the most terrifying radiological disasters the world has ever seen. Those are the words of a desperate woman. The moment she finally realized what was causing this mysterious sickness that was tearing through her family. But here's the tragic part. By the time she sounded the alarm, the curse, well, it was already loose. Okay, so let's set the scene. A frantic woman, her name is Maria Ferreira, bursts into a city hospital. She slams this heavy bag down on a doctor's desk and tells him that whatever's inside is killing her family. Now the doctor, he's skeptical of course, but he has no idea he is literally face to face with the start of a massive citywide nuclear catastrophe. So to really understand what was in that bag, we have to rewind a bit. We've got to go back to the origin of this cursed treasure. So this whole mess really kicks off back in 1985. A private radiotherapy clinic gets abandoned because of some legal squabble, and they just leave a powerful piece of medical equipment behind. Now, fast forward 2 years. On September 10th, a couple of guys break in looking for scrap metal. It takes them a few days of work, but on the 13th, they manage to crack open the machine, and they find this small, glowing capsule inside. Almost immediately, they both get violently sick, but they just figure, must be something they ate. So on September 18th, they sell their prize to a local scrapyard, completely unaware they've just unleashed a deadly curse on their entire community. So what exactly was in that capsule? The culprit is something called cesium-137. It's an incredibly radioactive substance, and the bit inside that machine, it was 93 grams of this stuff, in the form of a fine powder that looks a lot like table salt. The huge problem with cesium is that it's water-soluble, it gets into the air really easily, and once it's out of its protective lead shell, it just contaminates everything it touches. The danger that had just been let loose was absolutely immense. Okay, so now let's follow the path of this beautiful poison as it starts its silent, deadly journey right through the middle of the city. So, when night falls at the scrapyard, the new owner, Dever Ferreira, he sees something incredible. There's this mysterious, brilliant blue light just radiating from the chunk of scrap he bought. He was completely mesmerized. He thought he'd struck gold, or maybe found some kind of supernatural artifact. He had absolutely no idea he was staring at his own death sentence. So, thrilled with his discovery, what does Dever do? He takes this glowing thing into his house to show everyone. And from there, it just gets worse. He starts inviting friends and neighbors over to see it. He even starts chipping off little pieces and handing them out as souvenirs. And this is where the tragedy just multiplies. His 6-year-old niece, Lade, is so enchanted by the shimmering powder that she starts playing with it, rubbing it all over her body like glitter. And then, tragically, while she's eating a sandwich, she accidentally ingests some of it. A witness later gave that horrifying description. Lade was so fascinated by the powder that she put it on her face like makeup, making her skin light up with this eerie, otherworldly blue glow. The innocent curiosity of a little girl had just delivered a fatal dose of radiation. Well, it didn't take long for that initial wonder to curdle into a widespread, mysterious illness. And this is the point where people started slowly to connect the dots. Within just a few hours and days, pretty much everyone who had touched the glowing powder started getting sick. And the symptoms were all the same: terrible vomiting, diarrhea, and these strange burn-like sores appearing on their skin. Doctors were totally stumped. They diagnosed them with everything from food poisoning to some weird allergic reaction, never once suspecting the invisible enemy that was attacking their bodies from the inside out. But while the doctors were completely baffled, Dever's wife, Maria, made the crucial connection. She realized that every single person who got sick had one thing in common. They'd all touched that strange, glowing piece of junk from her husband's scrapyard. She trusted her gut, and she knew she had to do something. She gathered up what was left of the material, put in a bag, and took off for the hospital. Maria's warning was the tripwire. It set off an alarm that would quickly escalate into a massive citywide emergency, something Brazil had never, ever seen before. After Maria showed up, the authorities sent a medical physicist to check things out. Now get this, as he's driving towards the hospital, he turns on his radiation detector, just to test it. The alarm immediately starts screaming, and the needle just shoots off the scale. He thinks the device is broken, so he goes all the way back to get another one. and the exact same thing happens. The horrifying truth just dawns on him. The problem wasn't his meter. The entire area was just bathed in intense radiation. The scale of this potential disaster was just staggering. To even start to get a handle on it, they had to turn the city's Olympic Stadium into a massive screening center. All in all, a mind-boggling 112,000 people, a huge chunk of the city's population, had to be checked for radiation exposure. And the results from all that screening? They were grim. Officials found that 249 people had significant levels of radioactive contamination, either on their skin or, much more dangerously, inside their bodies. For 20 of them, the dose was so high that even their own bodily waste had to be treated as nuclear material. The cleanup operation that followed was just monumental. The contamination was literally everywhere. 7 houses had to be demolished. They had to scrape the topsoil off public squares. In the end, they collected 3,500 tons of radioactive waste. I'm talking everything from furniture and clothes to cars and building debris, and it all had to be buried in a secure site outside the city. But, cleaning up the physical contamination was only half the battle. Now we need to talk about the long-lasting human cost of this disaster, because it left a deep, painful scar on the entire community. The immediate human toll was just heartbreaking. Within a month, 4 people were dead. 6-year-old Lade Ferreira died an agonizing death on October 23rd. And in a cruel twist of fate, on that exact same day, her aunt Maria, the very woman who raised the alarm, also died from internal bleeding caused by the radiation. 2 of Devire's scrapyard employees also died, and Roberto Alves, one of the original guys who stole the machine, had to have his arm amputated. The fear that gripped Brazil was just palpable. When it came time to bury little Lady, a mob of 2,000 people actually rioted. They tried to block the entrance to the cemetery because they were terrified her body was still radioactive and would poison the ground and the water. It took a massive police response to finally lay her to rest in a special lead-lined fiberglass coffin. In the aftermath, the people of Goiânia basically became outcasts. You have to remember, this was just 1 year after the Chernobyl disaster, so the world's fear of radiation was at an all-time high. Residents were turned away from hotels, flights, and buses. The city's products were boycotted, which just crushed the local economy. The survivors were marked not just by radiation, but by this deep, painful, and lasting social stigma. And that really leaves us with this one final, chilling question. The story of Goiânia is such a tragic reminder that sometimes the most dangerous things come in the most beautiful packages. It was just a simple chain of errors, an abandoned machine, a moment of greed, and a fatal, fatal misunderstanding of a beautiful, deadly glow that led to a disaster that absolutely could have and should have been avoided.